The semester is officially over, so you all know what that means. Boom! We're back in the man cave. Just in time to talk about Star Wars The Force Awakens. It's finally here, guys. We have been waiting for it forever, but it is here, it's real, and now we get to discuss it. Now, for anyone who may be brand new to my channel, I am a huge Star Wars fan. These movies were such a big part of my childhood. They're part of the reason why I love movies as much as I do. The original trilogy is one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Each of those movies completely solidified what a sci-fi movie should be. The prequels, though, I am not a fan of at all. So naturally, because the prequels disappointed us the way that they did, it just left us wanting more from this saga. And not just more Star Wars movies, but ones that harken back to the original trilogy and remind us why this franchise became as iconic as it did. And then I will never forget October of 2012 when we all found out that our wishes would be fulfilled. And no, it is not weird that I can precisely remember when that was announced, thank you very much. I was listening to the radio, working my awful job scrubbing pots and pans for one of my college's dining halls. And the radio announces that Disney has officially bought out Lucasfilms, and that means we are officially getting a brand new Star Wars trilogy, with the first one coming out in 2015. And that news, of course, just ensued nerdgasms everywhere. So yeah, obviously I was super excited for this movie. In fact, I was so excited that I decided to make spoilers for every movie in the Star Wars saga before The Force Awakens hit theaters. You can check those out if you haven't already. But now I have finally seen Star Wars The Force Awakens, and now the question has to be answered. Is it good? Gotta be honest with you guys, because I always am. This movie really disappointed me for one big reason. Because now I have to spend the rest of my life knowing that the prequel trilogy could have been awesome if George Lucas had signed the rights to Star Wars to Disney back then. Star Wars The Force Awakens was so awesome! This was everything I wanted it to be. It completely lived up to the ridiculous amount of hype that it has, and I am so excited to finally be talking about how great this movie was with you guys. Now, I don't think I even need to give a spoiler alert here, because if you haven't seen Star Wars The Force Awakens at this point, you simply don't care. So let's talk about some epicness. So this movie opens up the same way that every Star Wars movie before it opened up, and it's still so beautiful. Just seeing the opening crawl once again and hearing John Williams' amazing score for Star Wars again, it just immediately sucks you right back into the world of Star Wars. But anyway, the crawl explains that Luke Skywalker has just disappeared. Nobody has seen him in ages. And there are two organizations that are trying to find him. There's the First Order, which has risen up from what the Empire was before it was destroyed in Return of the Jedi. And they intend to find Luke Skywalker to destroy him so that the last remaining Jedi and the only thing that can stand in their way is now erased from existence. On the other side of the coin, we have the Resistance. These guys are pretty much what the rebels were from the original trilogy, and their intent is to find Luke Skywalker so he can help lead them to victory against the First Order. So the first scene in this movie takes place on the planet Jakku, and one of the Resistance fighter pilots named Poe Dameron has just obtained some very important information to Luke Skywalker's whereabouts. However, shit gets real when the First Order arrives to take him captive. We see the stormtroopers arrive, led by Captain Phasma, and they just start killing everyone in the village. Then, to make matters worse, we see Kylo Ren emerge from the ship, and it gets to the point where Poe realizes he's not going to be able to escape this. With that, he gives this information to his droid BB-8 to escape with. And here we immediately see just how powerful Kylo Ren is. Poe tries to shoot him, but Kylo Ren just uses the Force to completely block the blaster bolt in midair while completely freezing Poe in his tracks so the stormtroopers can take him away. Right there, it shows that Kylo Ren is very powerful with the Force, and he is going to be a huge problem for the heroes to stop in this movie. Now, speaking of the heroes in this movie, we eventually see Rey, who's the scavenger who's trying to live off whatever she can on Jakku. She eventually runs into BB-8, she saves him from being taken away and sold for parts, and she even grants him shelter for the night. Now, back on the First Order Star Destroyer, one of the stormtroopers from earlier in this movie decides to rescue Poe. After Poe just basically had his mind completely torn apart after it was read by Kylo Ren through his Force techniques. Crazy bastard. So the two of them decide to hijack a TIE fighter, and after a few mishaps along the way, the two of them are able to escape the First Order, where Poe gives the stormtrooper the name Finn. And it's in this moment I start feeling, I don't know a lot about what's going to go on in this movie, but I have a feeling we're about to see a really strong friendship build between these two. But when the TIE fighter crash lands on Jakku, Finn is the only one who emerges from it before the TIE fighter just sinks in quicksand. Well, looks like I called that one wrong. Looks like being the key words there. So Finn eventually runs into Rey and BB-8, all of whom are being tracked down by the stormtroopers. So now in order to escape them, they all decide to hijack a garbage spaceship, which turns out to be the Millennium Falcon. We then get this really intense chase scene between these TIE fighters and the Falcon, and it's awesome. It's just so cool seeing how well Rey and Finn are able to handle the Millennium Falcon together and be able to either gun down or get away from the TIE fighters that are chasing them. And above all, it's just so great to see the Falcon back doing Falcon things in Star Wars. So now the three of them start making their way toward the Resistance base, only to get abducted by a much larger ship. However, it is not the First Order that boards the ship, it's Han Solo and Chewbacca. And here we see these two have basically retained the exact same personality traits they've had throughout these years. Particularly in seeing that Han is basically as sarcastic as he was back in the original trilogy. But we also see that Han is still avoiding paying debts that he owes when two bounty hunting groups arrive to kill Han and take BB-8. But luckily, through the five heroes all working together, they're able to escape these bounty hunters and leave in the Falcon. And here's where Han reveals that everything that was thought to be a myth, you know, the Force, the Jedi, it's all real and it needs to be taken seriously. With that, the group decides to go to the planet Takodana to seek help from Maz Kanata. I'm so awful at pronunciation, so I'm not sure if I said any of those words right. But if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about anyway. So in the meantime, Kylo Ren has been informed by his master, Supreme Leader Snoke, that the map to Luke Skywalker now lies in the possession of Kylo Ren's father, Han Solo. Which officially leaves everyone in the audience like, what? But that also explains why Kylo Ren is so obsessed with becoming who Darth Vader was. Because to him, Darth Vader isn't just some idol that he's striving to be. That's also his grandfather. And you see throughout this movie just how conflicted he is in trying to figure out who he himself is as a person while also trying to finish what Darth Vader started. Which I thought was great for this movie because it added so much more character to Kylo Ren and didn't just make him just some bad guy that needs to be taken down in this movie. So we get back to the heroes on the planet and Rey has actually discovered Luke's old lightsaber. And the second she touches it, she starts experiencing all these flashbacks in her head, particularly of the one with her as a child being abandoned on Jakku. And of course, that whole experience just freaks her out, but it leaves all of us wondering what the true meaning behind all of that is. In the meantime, General Hux, who's basically the commander-in-chief of the First Order, he orders the activation of the Starkiller base, which is more or less the Death Star on steroids. This thing drains the power from the sun into its core and then just fires 4 massive laser beams into 4 different planets that completely destroys them. The heroes witness this happen in the sky and it leaves all of them basically like, holy shit, so that's what we're up against? And to make matters worse, the First Order has tracked them down on this planet and has arrived to take them all away. However, everyone is able to put up a fight, especially Finn, who's able to use the lightsaber to surprisingly good effect. But the real break comes when the Resistance, led by Poe, joins the fight. Yep, he didn't die on Jakku, he's still alive, and he is still a badass pilot. I mean, he's taking out all of these enemy ships, while Finn, Chewie, and Han are just putting up the fights that they're putting up. It just made for a really sweet battle. But then, Rey ends up getting confronted by Kylo Ren, who's able to use the Force to, read her mind. And Kylo Ren realizes that she has seen the map that BB-8 is keeping. With that, he decides to call off his troops and take Rey away as his new captive. So now the heroes reunite with the Resistance that is led by General Leia Organa. That's right, she is no longer a princess, she is a general. We also finally see C-3PO for the first time in this movie, who apparently has a new red arm now, I guess. So now that the Resistance has finally regrouped, they all agree that the best way to turn the balance of power back into their favor is to destroy Starkiller Base. Now if the base's shields can be deactivated, then Poe can lead a strike onto the weak spot of the base, which will effectively completely blow it up. Which obviously left everyone who was watching this like, oh, we've definitely seen that before. So anyway, Finn, Han, and Chewie, they depart to go to the base in order to carry out the mission, but Han is going on a much more personal reason. Because he and Leia, they don't want Kylo Ren to die. They want to bring him home and bring him back to their family. So that's what Han especially wants with this mission here, to get his son back. Now speaking of Kylo Ren, he now has Rey strapped to the torture chair. However, at this point, he removes his helmet to show his true face to Rey. And here we see his face is completely normal. You know, there's no scars, no battle damage, nothing. Dude, you're already letting Darth Vader down. You're just wearing that mask for shits and gigs. His actually kept him alive. So now he tries to use the Force to, further read Rey's mind in order to find out more about the map. However, she now starts using the Force against him to block his control over her mind, which of course freaks him out to see that she is a fellow Force user, but it also leaves us as an audience wondering, wait a minute, Finn is supposed to be the Jedi in this movie. I mean, all the trailers and posters have shown him wielding a lightsaber, so clearly he has to be the Jedi and not Rey. But then as I was watching this for the first time, I stopped and I thought to myself, there has been zero indication throughout this movie that Finn is able to use the Force. Which now leaves everyone like, oh my gosh, Rey is the Jedi in this movie, not Finn. This movie did such a good job in the fact that it had us all believing that Finn would be the one who would become the Jedi and not even give a shred of thought that Rey could potentially be the Jedi instead. I just love when a movie can surprise you that way. And now that Rey is beginning to understand how the Force works more, she's able to even use the Jedi mind trick to get one of the stormtroopers to set her free. In the meantime, Finn, Han, and Chewie have forced Captain Phasma to deactivate the shields to Starkiller Base, so now the Resistance pilots can start making their move. The three of them are also able to reunite with Rey, while Han reunites with Kylo Ren. Han starts walking out, onto this very narrow bridge to, try to confront him and talk to him. And once this all went underway, it had me sitting there like, oh no, it's gonna happen, isn't it? And as the two are talking, Han is of course trying to convince him to return home with him and Leia so the three of them can be a family again. And at first it seems like Kylo Ren just may be turning around. I mean, he looks like he's going to hand over his lightsaber to give to Han as a sign that he wants to turn over a new leaf. But Kylo Ren truly reveals that he is no longer the son that Han and Leia knew him as. He activates his lightsaber and he kills Han. And immediately when it first happened, it's so hard to take in at first because it leaves you sitting there like, I can't believe they just killed off Han Solo. And obviously immediately after Han is killed, Chewie snaps. He basically looks at Kylo Ren like, your ass is mine, motherfucker. He lands a direct hit onto Kylo Ren, which causes Kylo Ren to start bleeding a little bit, and Chewie also detonates some explosions that helps weaken the Starkiller Base itself. I just think it's really powerful emotionally here to see Chewie react the way he did towards the death of his best friend. So now Rey and Finn confront Kylo out in the snow. Rey is at first knocked out by him, but Finn picks up the lightsaber and he just charges Kylo Ren full force with it. And this is what I loved seeing with Finn here. Because throughout this movie, Finn's main mission has been to escape, run away from the First Order, and just avoid any and all confrontation with them. But here he shows some serious balls to just engage in a lightsaber duel against a guy who's clearly much more powerful than him that is more than likely going to kill him. And for a while, it actually seems like Finn is putting up a pretty solid fight against Kylo Ren. But it doesn't last for very long as Kylo Ren just slices Finn up the spine, which just puts him out of the fight. So now Kylo Ren tries to take Luke's lightsaber as his own through using the Force. We see it slowly creeping out of the snow, but he is not the one who takes it. Rey is. Just seeing that scene happen and seeing Rey continue to understand and learn the Force the way that she is just so awesome to see. So now the two get into their own lightsaber duel, and this one also kind of seems pretty evenly matched at first. But now, Rey's able to channel the Force more through her fighting, and now she begins to even overpower Kylo Ren. And what I really liked in each of their fighting styles was it harkened back to what the lightsaber duels were in the original Star Wars trilogy. They're not really choreographed, it's just straight up clashing with the lightsabers and just really raw fighting. I just think it makes it that much better. But before the fight can end, the Resistance pilots have succeeded in attacking the base's weak spot, and now the base is beginning to blow up. With that, Kylo Ren is able to escape, and he is ordered to return to Supreme Leader Snoke in order to complete his training. Finn and Rey are also both rescued by Chewie, and the Resistance is all able to escape as the Starkiller Base blows up just before it was able to destroy the Resistance base. Once they return, Finn is immediately sent to get medical treatment while R2-D2 comes back online. Yeah, he had kind of been in a slump this whole time in this movie, so we really didn't get to see too much of him until this point. Once he awakens, he and BB-8 combine these two maps in their data to officially reveal Luke's location. With that, Rey decides to depart to go find him. She makes it to the planet and climbs to the very top of this island, where at long last we see Luke Skywalker. He's a really old guy now, with a beard and a really thick head of hair, but still with his metallic hand. Rey greets him by offering him his old lightsaber back. And at first I'm thinking, oh yeah, we're gonna get to see Luke train Rey and it's gonna be awesome! And then the credits started rolling and I went, no, come on, you can't end it like that! Well, at least now we know how our parents felt at the end of Empire Strikes Back. I love and hate cliffhanger endings like that. Because you walk out satisfied, but not without wanting more, especially with all these questions you have that you want answered. So all in all, Star Wars The Force Awakens was an incredible movie. This movie had to live up to an absurd amount of hype, and it did it so well. The action in this movie was fantastic. The characters, whether they were old or new, were all great. The story was awesome. The visuals were amazing. This movie has me excited for Star Wars again, and that is just such a great feeling to have. So the question now is, where does it rank among the other Star Wars movies? Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back will always be the two best Star Wars movies. Nothing is ever going to touch those for me. However, I am willing to say that The Force Awakens is better than Return of the Jedi, and I do love Return of the Jedi. It is so much better than any of the prequels, that's for sure. And I am just so glad that this movie turned out to be as great as it was. Now, one complaint that I have heard with this movie is it follows similar plot elements from the original Star Wars movie. You know, like everyone is after a droid with important information, there's a super weapon that can destroy planets that needs to be destroyed. And while those are undeniably similar plot elements, I don't let them bring the movie down as much as I would for other movies that would follow similar plot elements. And that's quite simply because part of what's so awesome with this movie is just seeing stuff from the original Star Wars trilogy happening again in a new Star Wars movie. It adds to the nostalgia factor for die-hard fans, but it also helps in bringing in new Star Wars fans. It allows them to enjoy and appreciate this movie the same way that people who saw the original Star Wars movie did 40 years ago. And also, this movie had a lot of new and really good story elements brought into it that we hadn't seen before with Star Wars. Like a stormtrooper who wants to do good, or a Jedi that's slowly but surely learning the Force by themselves. Or a villain that in this case is showing so much conflict in what he is and what he is trying to become that made Kylo Ren the great character that he was. Point being, this movie is such a welcomed addition to the Star Wars saga. I cannot wait to see where else the story and the characters take place from this point forward, especially with some of the characters we didn't see as much of in this movie. And above all, thank you J.J. Abrams for making Star Wars great again. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.